Hope everybody's doing well today. I want to welcome everybody to the Unimpressed podcast. And today we have a friend calling in from New Jersey, and you might recognize her from As the World Turns. Her name is Martha Byrne. Welcome to the show, Martha. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here.
Well, when you think about a soap opera star and a New York City cop, how did you hook up?
I went out one night. I had just moved back from California, and I went out with my girlfriends, and she said, my cousin's coming with his cousins and this and that and a bunch of guys. And he walked in and I beelined for him because I thought he was absolutely gorgeous. And I knew his name was McMahon, and I'm Byrne, and we're Irish. And I thought that would be a great talking point to start the conversation. Within 6 months, we were engaged and bought a house together. We were in our 20s. I was 23 at the time, and we've been together ever since. That was 1993. And we just totally hit it off. Like, what he did for a living as a New York City police officer was, to me, that was a real heroism in the world. He was saving lives every day, and he was taking guns off the street, and he was going into burning buildings, and he was a school safety sergeant where he's saving kids from gangs. Like, he was doing God's work every day. And I was entertaining people. And I feel like that was also an important role in the world to kind of keep people happy and entertained. So we really made a good couple. We both had very different careers, but also very exciting. And me in the public eye and him in the day-to-day, the community eye, both playing very important roles. So it just worked.
And so now, fast forward, and we'll walk through. I like to kind of unearth the person, but fast forward now, we've seen your husband's name in the press, Michael. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
So my husband was an NYPD sergeant. He won 75 medals of honor while he was in NYPD. On NYPD, he had such a career, and he was in a severe car accident during a police chase, which ended his career in the NYPD. He was devastated. So he decided to become a private investigator just to kind of use the skills that he had, and started working for defense attorneys. And he loved it. Like, he became one of the most sought after PIs in the tri-state area of New Jersey, New York, did hundreds of cases, worked on federal cases, worked on high profile cases. I mean, he was his business was really booming. And then he gets a very routine call in 2016, and very common. Someone who was looking to find some assets that someone had stolen money from a construction company in China, but the assets were here in New Jersey. So it's very routine case. He did that, found LLCs, found homes, found money, very, very typical stuff. He actually hired 2 NYPD retired men to work with him on this case to do surveillance. He spoke to 2 federal agents about this case back in 2016. He worked on it for a couple of days, never thought about it again. And then on October 28th, 2020, they came to my house before dawn and arrested him in front of my kids for failure to register as a foreign agent, which, again, we'll go back to that, and stalking. It's so absurd to even say that out loud because, again, licensed private investigators, news operations, insurance companies, surveillance it's part of their daily routine. It's part of their livelihood. So to be charged with that was shocking because when he did surveillance on this case, he notified the local police 5 times that he was doing it. He told them his make and model of his car, that he was armed, where he was located. And the subject of his surveillance actually never even saw him, or his wife never saw him. So to be charged with that was just, first of all, made no sense. Second of all, to be charged with FARA, which you're hearing a little bit more now about Hunter Biden, and you're hearing about other, FARA has become kind of a topic on the news. So what FARA is, it's just the failure to register as a foreign agent with the Attorney General. So how that law works is that you have to know you're working for a foreign government. You have to know that FARA exists, and then you have to deliberately not register. So my husband was hired by a U.S.-based company. He was paid with a U.S. check. He worked for the company, a construction company, from what he was told, and did nothing illegal, like very civil matter. But unbeknownst to him, these people were doing something in a different lane that was not okay with the government. Now, he had no idea what was going on. So, we were fighting this for 2.5 years. I mean, all the discovery shows his innocence. I mean, there's so much evidence of his innocence. He saved every email, text message, invoiced people for cash. Like, he did everything by the book, saved everything. To this day, he still has his phone. Like, the government never took his computers, his phones, his cameras, his nothing, his guns. So we were perplexed. We're like, how is this even possible? Like, you're going to fight this, but they must have gotten this all wrong. And then for 2.5 weeks of a trial in the Eastern District of New York, they tore him apart every single day. They created him as an unlawful person. We were not allowed to talk about his career in the NYPD. We were barred from doing that. If someone said hero cop, objection, we were not allowed to talk about his good deeds, his history, his character, but they were allowed to throw him into this hell and smear him on a daily basis. We were also not allowed to bring in, there was a civil lawsuit against the subject of his surveillance that came about a few months after his surveillance, which had information in there about that my husband had found. We were not allowed to bring that into the trial. We were not allowed to show his entire interrogation video during the trial. We were up against it from day one. And then he was found guilty of 3 of these charges.
Who was making these rules, I guess? The judge?
It's the prosecutors. The prosecutors,
okay.
They say this has nothing to do with, it's not irrelevant. It's like, well, if you're being charged with working for the Chinese government, right? I mean, don't you want to know the type of person that this is? No. And also he only made a few $1,000s on this case. And which is, again, why would a man, again, his history shows his career. The fact that you can't bring that as admissible into your defense, I find that in this country to be shocking. It's like you're accusing somebody of murder, and they were a priest that was living in a monastery in the hills of Italy. It's like it's so antithesis of what he is, that he would never betray his country. His whole life has been dedicated to be the betterment of others. Why would you not be able to say that?
So what these other 2 pieces? You had a company here that hired him, and then I guess this company was backed by this company in China.
No, so it was a translation company in New York, Queens, New York. Legitimate translation company, has been in business since 2015. They were hired because the client was Chinese. But again, this is very common in PI work that you'll have. Let's say it was Germany. Let's say it was Ireland. Let's say it was another country that didn't. They still have business here, and they're allowed. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I mean, and then his clients who were here and he spoke English and said it was the company and that they were looking for assets and they wanted to find properties. This was again very routine. So the man that met with him gave him an alias. Turned out my husband didn't know that until he was arrested, that was this man he was working with was using a different name. And that was news to my husband because all the documentation that he had said one thing. But again, what my husband did, there was nothing illegal about what he did. There was no crime. You're allowed to do business. You're allowed to take a client. You're a sole proprietor. You're allowed to do basic work. But the fact that these people were now off doing something different away from him in a separate lane, the government bridged those two because the people that were responsible fled the country. Gotcha. So this is why this is very important. So in April of 2000,
you had 2 work for hires, right? So you had a work for hire in the U.S. and then they had a work for hire, which was your husband. Does not work for hire? Does that legality of work for hire not come into play here as well?
That's what I'm saying. Like you're allowed to take a job. Like there's nothing illegal about what he did. This is kind of my analysis. It's like you're painting a house. You're a sole proprietor and you get money to paint the house. The man who's paying you to paint the house goes down the road and plans a bank robbery. Are you responsible for what he does when he goes to rob the bank? No, you're doing a job, right? You're separated from that person. But because the government and the FBI let the actual bad guys, the Chinese agents, flee the country on their watch, by the way, who was left? My husband. And there was a case created and they took legal work, which is very scary. They've criminalized the private investigative business it's very scary. If legal PI work is now a federal crime, the entire industry's done. Insurance companies do this all the time because they have to follow a person to make sure they're not cheating them in their insurance. It happens all the time. News organizations follow people, paparazzi follow people, public streets. There's nothing illegal about that. So we kept thinking, well, of course, this is going to come out and it's going to be exonerated. And I think it's important for people to understand something. The timing is very important because this is back in 2016, 17, when China was not as much on the radar as it is now, first of all. But the FBI, we saw it in court. The case agent in this case interviewed one of the Chinese agents in the airport at the day apparently something bad had happened, knew something bad had happened, and let the guy flee and go to China. We saw it actually happen. He said, I hope you make your flight. I'm going to make sure you make your flight. The FBI lets him flee. They let him come back 6 months later, interview him again, and he goes again. In the 4 years of this investigation, the FBI never interviewed my husband. They never interviewed the other 4 members of law enforcement that were connected to this case in their entire investigation. It makes you wonder. It makes you scratch your head going, how is that even possible? Why wouldn't you utilize the people who are law enforcement, who are very high-ranking people as part of this investigation? So, we're fighting this. It is shocking. The FBI did not do the proper investigation here, and my family is now been sacrificed for that. And I find it to be unforgivable what they've done to my husband, to my family. And we're filing motions in a few weeks to dismiss this case, and we'll continue to fight it.
I have experience in New Jersey, and believe it or not, most people in the area in New Jersey, I mean, they play by the rules.
Sure.
And they do the right thing. I mean, sometimes there's things that are rough around the edges, but especially when you take someone who's a cop, and just having that, I'm just thinking about the environment in general. I understand the environment in general, and especially someone in your husband's position, probably 98%, 99% of the time, they do the right thing procedurally. There's just kind of a mindset.
Call the local police because I want to make sure that, this is what you do. Like he goes, he always says, like when I was on the NYPD, I would call the local precinct wherever we're going into, if we're doing a buy bust, drug, undercover drug and stuff, or gun buys and things like that. You tell the precinct, you tell the locals so that they know that something's going on. It's to protect the neighborhood. It's to make sure that there's no, that it's procedural. That's something he does. I mean, the guy he did invoices for cash. He did surveillance reports for his clients. Like, he did everything right. And he even gave over all the evidence when he was arrested. He said, here, take, he said, send them emails, everything. And they ended up using that against him in court. They would put it up on screen. It said, provided by defendant McMahon. It's like, this guy's trying to help you. He's trying to solve this problem for you, and you turn it against him, and you destroy him. Why would a guy, first of all, a couple things. He's 55 years old. Okay. He took the NYPD test when he was 16 years old. He dedicated his life to the betterment of others, to service. Why would one day he wake up and go, yeah, I'm going to work for the Chinese government for a few grand? It's obscene. I just don't, how did we even get here in the first place? It's truly scary for every American citizen should really be concerned about this, because if they could take legal work in a small business and start turning it into something criminal, nobody's safe. No, if it's us today, it's the barber tomorrow. It's the painter the next day. It's if they need a case and they need to create a case and they don't care, they'll sacrifice you because they need to get the case. This is not how our justice system is supposed to work, And
where's the rub at, you think? Where's the rub that, if they're trying to put your husband out here on a limb, where's the rub? Do you have any lawyers or something that's trying to figure that out for you?
Well, I think first of all, it's China. I said, if this were a different country, we would be having this conversation. It was a check the box case for China. The China initiative came in 2018 under Jeff Sessions and then William Barr. And there was a mandate to bring in Chinese cases in 2018. And one of them was in the Eastern District of New York. Like, you have to bring in cases, and you can use FARA to do it, okay? Which means getting search warrants, doing this, using failure to register in a foreign agent. Now, again, I don't know what evidence they had to get search warrants on my husband. I can't believe they even were able to, based on what are the evidence that we have, but that's besides the point. So it was China. And this was the first fox hunt case, they called Operation Fox Hunt, that came to a trial. And it was this national security box, check about China, that we're doing something about China. But the scary thing is nothing was done about China in this case, because the actual players that were involved in this, they were running around this country since 2016, 17, 15, and they let them go. The FBI let them go. So is that a win for our country? Is our security any better? No. Is it's still happening? Yes. So private investigators were targeted in 2016. They knew that. The FBI knew that and did not warn them. They didn't talk to the local police where these operations were going on in New Jersey. To this day, I went to talk to them a few months ago and I said, have you ever heard about this? They said, absolutely not. I have no idea what you're talking about. So they're not doing anything. It's on paper, it's like woohoo. But to this day, PIs are still getting targeted, and local law enforcement isn't aware of these operations and what to look out for. So it's an optics case, and my husband was a scapegoat for it. And it's wrong. if they had done their job in 2016 and started warning PIs and say, look out, or by the way, there were other cases where they did work with PIs and they did warn them and they did work with the FBI. So if it's not illegal there, why is it illegal for my husband? You see, they can't figure it out. They couldn't quite figure out what this looks like. And we've suffered for it because of those decisions.
And leading up to this, before something like this happens to your family, how many kids do you have?
We have 3.
3 kids. How old are your kids?
25, 20, and 17. My daughter's 17.
So your normal family in New Jersey. What's your mindset in your 50s? You know, husband's a cop. You're a soap opera star. You had a good life, right? You have 3 good kids.
Perfect life. Perfect
how
life.
was that?
I mean, we were talking about what our next steps and phase was going to be in our lives. We were planning for where we were going to be in 10 years and like where we going to go in our lives and travel and kind of, you know, we actually said to each other, it's so strange. You know, a few months before this happened, my husband and I were having this conversation, and we said, you know, we've had such a blessed life. We've gotten to travel and meet people and have these incredible experiences in our lives. We've been so blessed. What a way to spend our next 20 years of our lives, to kind of just enjoy the experiences that we've had in our past and kind of live our lives. And then your life turns into hell. And the only thing I can describe it as, people said, how do you feel, right? There's only one thing I can compare it to in my life, and it's not death, shockingly. Death is something that we all have to deal with in our lives, right? At some point, someone passes away, you mourn them, it's terrible, but you know that it's final, right? It's something that you mourn. This is different. It's when my daughter was born, she was rushed into ICU and they intubated her. They put a tube down her throat, put her lungs, and she was touch and go for a while. And I think that's the closest thing I can get to how you feel, because it's somebody that you love more than anything in the world that you would switch places with in a second to take away their pain. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about my husband. This man is a good human being. He spent his life being the best dad, husband. He coached kids. He helped kids who were falsely accused of murder. He did investigations pro bono to help them get exonerated. He stopped a robbery by our house of a 90-year-old woman a few months ago. Even though he's in this horrible situation, right? He could have kept going. He was in his car. He could have kept going, well, I don't want to get involved. No, he turned around and he stopped a robbery of a 90-year-old woman in a bank parking lot, because that's who he is. So with my daughter, she's this perfect angel, this new baby who's done nothing in her life to deserve such pain. And then you have my husband, who's dedicated his life and his unselfishness to help. He's given everything to other people, everything to other people. And to hear him be attacked and treated like garbage every day was almost too much for me to take. And it is unforgivable what they did to him in that courtroom and smeared him day after day after day, and not being able to defend yourself and say no. And I swear there were so many days I just wanted to stand up and go, stop. This is an assault on an innocent man day after day. And his kids, my son was there and had to hear that one day. I mean, how do they sleep at night? I don't understand how they can just justify this treatment knowing he's innocent. See, this is the thing. Yeah. They know he's innocent, because I've seen the exact same evidence that they have seen. I have read discovery. I read through tens of thousands of pages of this case. They know he's innocent. And there's so much we couldn't put in for whatever reason. Well, you know, the federal laws and the guardrails that are put up are so difficult to navigate. So I don't really know what to do except tell our story, you know, when we came out after this, because they can't just have their version of what is out there. The people have to understand and know what really happened here, and let them decide for themselves if they hear our facts. But they'll get out. See, they'll get out. It'll all get out eventually.
Well, he has a lot of history. Obviously, they know his history.
Yep.
He had a good career. So now you have this good career, and your own people come after you.
Right.
So what is he, you know, as of today, what is he facing, and what are you going to have to do to move forward?
Well, his first words about this, and I'm glad you brought this up, was betrayal. He feels completely betrayed by the Department of Justice because, you know, he's worked on federal cases. He's testified in federal cases. He's been on their same side in many times, in many situations. So he feels completely betrayed that anybody would think or create a case around him after his dedication and what he's done for law enforcement, for the community. So now we file motions to dismiss the case based on things that happened in court, which are horrifying. And we hope that we get somewhere with that. I hope that there's some justice in that. And then if not, we continue and we move to an appeal. If he's sentenced, then we appeal it. And we keep going until he's completely exonerated. I mean, he did nothing wrong. I know people say, but it's like he did not commit any crime. They can spin it all they want. They can put a stank on it all they want and make it look bad and make the fact that he put money in my account or a joint account and not in his business account. If they want to make that look like it's a crime to paint him as a bad person, I find that to be obscene, and it's not illegal. See, this is the thing. They would throw things out like this and that. It's like, but why can't you meet it? He met at a Panera Bread and got cash at a meeting. I said, wait a minute. So now you can't take a business meeting at a restaurant, and cash is now an unacceptable form of payment for work in this country. Plus he invoiced for the cash, which showed up on the big screen. Like, they tried to paint this dark thing, which wasn't true. So, it's hard. You don't want to have to go out all the time. And this is not what I want my purpose in life to be, is to keep this. I don't, because there's so much joy in the world. I have 3 beautiful children. I've had the most incredible friends and family who support us, and the Pipe Hitter Foundation, which, they've been helping us with our fundraising. We are very blessed.
Fees? The legal fees are probably
oh my gosh, I don't even look right now. I mean, we just try to do what we can, and it's astronomical. The sad part is the government wants to bankrupt you. They want to break you so that you'll take a plea deal, and you're emotionally debilitated, financially debilitated. But my husband committed no crime, and he will never stand in front of a judge and lie and say he did something he didn't do. So we have to fight this. You have to. So again, the Pipe Hitter Foundation, if you go to hitterfoundation.org, and Michael McMahon, if you see who they support, they're a phenomenal organization, and they've helped us a tremendous amount in this, helping us with our financial, for our defense fund. But our lawyers are incredible and patient and believe in Mike. And they said, we'll never abandon you. We're there. We're here for you to the end. Because remember, my husband worked for lawyers after he retired. He worked for mostly defense attorneys, but some of the best ones. And they're like, we wanted this to be over so you could come back to work for us because we miss you because you're such a great investigator, So I don't have, what he's facing. I mean, I don't even like to say it because I find it to be, it makes me sick to my stomach. The fact that this man would spend 1 second away from this home for doing nothing wrong is not the way this country is supposed to function. I mean, I know what happens. I mean, my husband's worked on cases for people who are incarcerated falsely, and he's gotten them out. Like, he's worked on their behalf. He's like, I've seen this happen. And
red tape too, right? Don't red tape slow the process down. I mean,
again, especially in the federal government. But I've been to D.C. I've spoken to Byron Donalds. I spoke to Matt Gaetz. I spoke to Jim Jordan. I'm not Jim Jordan. He got my mail. Sorry. Richard Grinnell, who was a former director of national intelligence. I spoke to him in D.C., Richard Grinnell. And I said to him, my husband, this is what happened. And the FBI spoke to Chinese agents over my husband. He goes, your husband should have been given a defense briefing. Anybody law enforcement connected to this case should have been given a defense briefing and warned. And I said, why wasn't he? And he said, someone decided not to. I mean, the fact that the former head, director of national intelligence, is saying my husband should have been warned that someone had come after him, and the other 2 federal agents and the other 2 NYPD guys should have been given a defense briefing. I thought, what are we doing here? How does this happen? It's very scary. I mean, I was really praying it would be over so we could be advocates again and go out and help more people who are facing this, which we still want to do. We still want to do that. Like, we still want to be able to help people who are in these situations because it's so scary and they're so intimidating, and they don't send discovery. They wait months and months and months, and then you get a batch of 50,000 pages that you have to go through. And we got we were getting discovery like 2 weeks before the trial. Like, binders were showing up of stuff. It's like,
Do you think these guys really go through all that stuff? These prosecutors, they really?
No,
I mean,
I don't. I think no, I don't. I don't because let me tell you something. They're supposed to. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know, but there's so much evidence in there that he's innocent. I'm thinking maybe they missed a couple things. Okay, because I'm like, if I saw that, I mean, what are they doing? Looking at there are credit card statements and like the invasiveness of it. Our privacy is decimated. I mean, every email, everything, our privacy was totally destroyed. We were followed. We had a drone over our house by the FBI. The 2 unmarked cars followed my husband to his doctor's appointments. Like again, looking back now, we know who they were, right?
Yeah.
They were in our home. They violated the sanctity of my home and what we built together as a family for 30 years. They tore it apart. They tore it apart with a toothpick. Like toothpick. Like they'd look, your privacy is gone. And you're sitting in a courtroom and you're looking at that case agent who's sitting 5 feet away from you, and you know that he's been inside your life. And first of all, and by the way, not one FBI agent who investigated this case testified. Not one. That is unheard of. That not one FBI agent who investigated it for 4 years testified. They brought in third-party people to come in and read documents into the record, which is very telling. It's like, if you're so confident in this case, right? If this is such a big deal, why are you not testifying? And also, if this is such a national security case, right? This is a big deal for our country. This is so dangerous. What's going on here in the United States? Why wouldn't they bring in my husband and the other 4 law enforcement guys in 2016 and 17 and say, hey, come help us. Like, we've got something bad's going on here. We need your help. That never happened. But they're speaking to Chinese agents.
You think about all that detail. So if you have a process and they take this detail in and they filter through it, and then they give these prosecutors certain parts of that detail. Who's who's pushing the detail to those prosecutors? Because sometimes some of these prosecutors maybe they believe their own the narrative they're receiving. Because a lot of times these people are not dialed in to some of the information who are out front.
Like were they aware of who my husband was? Yeah. With the prosecutors, do they understand his background? I mean, we filed prosecutorial misconduct motions against them, against DOJ in right before in 21, I believe, because my husband worked in a very high profile federal case, which we feel may have been retaliation, that this arrest may have been a retaliation because of that case. Meanwhile, he was working on it federally. So it wasn't like he was doing something. Our belief was that the perception of my husband within the FBI was not a favorable one for no reason. Like, there was nothing legit. There was no reason for it. So you got to wonder, like, what were they telling the prosecutors about who my husband was? At some point, the prosecutors have to take ownership of that, right? They have to say, wait a minute. So at some point, someone decided to keep my husband in. In 2017, I always say this point: if my husband did something wrong in April of 2017, why didn't they arrest him in 2017? They knew it happened. They stopped the guy at the airport who took off. He came back in the end of 17. If something illegal happened in April of 2017, why wasn't my husband brought in, arrested, the other NYPD guys with him? Why weren't they arrested for stalking? Because there was no crime. There was no crime. And then the China initiative comes in 2018, and all of a sudden it's like China, China, China. We got to get China. We got to get China. And I think my husband's case got pushed to the front of the line. And that's when a lot of things started to change. And there's a lot about this case that has a lot of question marks on it. And, it's not my job to answer them, but people will. There's people looking into it, and they're going to be interested. And with the FBI and what's been going on with the FBI in the last couple of years, this falls right into the lane of what happened. Where did things go wrong?
It is very odd, an authentic thing that's recurring. Why?
This is a great quote. I think Steve Friend, he was on your show. He said, the FBI has to remember they are not secret agents. They are civil servants. After 9/11, we learned a very valuable lesson. You must share information to prevent harm. In this case, the FBI did not share information within their own agencies, clearly, because the 2 federal agents that my husband spoke to knew nothing about any of this stuff, Within the local police, PI associations, who are mostly law enforcement retired, by the way. So they kept their little secret. And because they did, there were crimes that happened on their watch over those 4 years. Okay. My life got decimated, unbeknownst to us. they were, whatever. They allowed Chinese agents to flee this country. I mean, even in our court case, they had a big thing on the screen. It said 25 Chinese police officers went to Houston and trained. They also went to Connecticut and were training. So, and they were going off and doing God knows what, and we weren't monitoring them properly, obviously, so that's the FBI. I mean, they knew they were here, they were blatantly invited here. So because of their lack of not sharing information, let me give you an example. If the FBI had told the local police that someone in their neighborhood was potentially going to be, something was going on with them, they didn't even have to say what it was. If you see anything, you hear anything, here's our card, call us, right? So when my husband goes in to register as surveilling that street, there would have been a ping. There would have been a ping. Wait a minute. Yeah. And they would have called the FBI and said, get here now. Mr. McMahon is here with another one of his NYPD guys. They're doing surveillance. And you and I would not be having this conversation right now. But they never did that. Never did that. So again, we are as a nation less secure because there were not protocols put in place back then. And retroing it now and going after an innocent man to create an optics case that they're doing something is not fair to him. It's not fair to our country. And it's just not the way that my husband works as far as law enforcement or in his experience. He said in the NYPD, you used to have like a system. So let's say you were running a plate or something for a case or, whatever, or you were going into a neighborhood or a building. He would get a ping saying, don't go in. It's, FBI is doing a sting operation for a drug gang or something. So the NYPD would know, stay away right now. We're doing something. So they were that back then with my husband, like in NYPD, there was a lot of communication, not here. And because of that, a lot of problems. And now we're fighting it because now we're dealing with this for I don't know how much longer, but
there's right or wrong. And if you're responsible, if you have a service, I always say this, you run a corporation or you're responsible for, your customer, whatever it is, I think in a way, you got to know who's paying the bills. American people are paying the bills. There's a responsibility to that. So It just seems like the narrative has got convoluted. And I mean, I don't even know what to say to you. I mean, because I can understand how you can, have a world turned upside down.
It's not how I look. If this happened, I'm a very faithful person. I mean, I pray the rosary every day. I'm in church. I'm going, God, just show me the way. Show me the way. What do you need me to do? I have a strong belief system in that if God has given us this challenge, and I say that challenge in a light way because it's much more than a challenge, it's a suffering, it's a genuine suffering. It cannot be for nothing. There has to be a reason why we are put in this position to help other people, to give people hope that, life goes on, you'll get through it. I don't know yet. God will show us. He will show us what this is in the long run, because I thought, okay, he'll be found out guilty. We'll go work with the Pipe Hitter Foundation. We'll help other people. And that didn't happen. So I went, okay, God, what's the bigger picture here about what you want, what do you use me, use us as tools for your purpose. And, just talking to you, just getting the story out, and maybe somebody will, maybe we'll get a whistleblower. Maybe we'll get somebody within the FBI who says, I saw something and it made me so uncomfortable. What was going on with your husband? I had to speak out. Maybe somebody retires. Maybe somebody has a conscience. Maybe somebody, is heartbroken by what they've seen, Again, speaking to all the congressmen before this, I mean, several, I must have spoken to 15 congressmen before the trial. I hope they step up now that this has happened and do what they can to rectify this if they can. I mean, I don't know. It can't hurt, let's put it that way, to have their support, public support. I don't count on it, but I pray for it. I really hope that more people will come out and say this was wrong. And we can do better here in this country. We can do better. And
absolutely,
our country deserves a justice system that is balanced. And, I know a former U.S. attorney from the Eastern District. I know him well. He used to work there for years. And he said, when I worked there, he goes, if you were innocent, like we got you out of it. Like we moved along, like we did everything to keep, if it showed that you were not guilty, not part of this, we got rid of you because we want to win. Like we want to get to the finish line with the people who have actually committed these crimes, but the people that actually did it were gone in this case. So now you're left with my husband, which is just sad. super sad for all of us.
Well, Martha, I appreciate you coming on the show and telling your story.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best. I think collectively, if we as a human being in human society can come together and get on the positive side of life, I think that's the only way we can do anything about this kind of stuff. So
good can always shine, through darkness, right? It's like the truth must always be the last man standing, right? It has to be. The good guys have to win. That's how every movie ends, right? That the good guy has to win. It's so rare that you see something where it's like the bad ones, the bad people who are trying to take away a man's liberty and his integrity. I mean, the good guy has to win in the end. I mean, I've been part of show business. I've written scripts in movies and television, and I'm writing a script right now that is.
You have a movie right now.
I know. I'm living it. But I've already written the ending. It's like I want it to be the happy part where we all go into the sunset and go down to the Jersey Shore and say, "Wow, what was that?" I just need to get there. Again, the path that it takes is not up to me. It's up to the big guy. I try to maneuver it and not be broken by it, and still just stick to the right, moving forward.
I don't know what it is. I got a feeling it's going to turn around for you.
God bless.
And
I hope so.
I wish Michael the best. And this has been Martha Byrne, and I'm John Edmonds Cosma, the CEO of Bang Productions.